Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm your host, Josh Taylor. Good to talk to you on a Friday night and got plenty of football to discuss. Steelers and Seahawks on Sunday. Steelers made the announcement today. Mason Rudolph will start at quarterback for the second game in a row. Pens start a back-to-back tomorrow night at PPG Paints Arena. Got some really good news today. Brian Rust returns to practice. He's been on long-term injured reserve for almost 2 weeks. Could be a big boost for the lineup. He's eligible to return off IR as early as Tuesday, so it could be a big enhancement in that lineup, if you will. To help me talk about these things and more, my guest tonight, Chris Adamski from the Trib, my longtime colleague and friend. Chris, let's start with the Steelers. Mason Rudolph, the decision comes down today. Mike Tomlin talked about it earlier in the week that Rudolph would start the week at practice as the quarterback, and they would see what happens with Kenny Pickett. They are going into Sunday's game with Rudolph starting at quarterback. Jerry Dulac talked about it a few moments ago, talking about what went into that decision to start Rudolph on Sunday, and also what could happen in the long term if Mason Rudolph is to perform well over this next game or maybe the next two games. Wanted to get your thoughts on both, A, the decision for the short term for him to start Sunday, and the same possibility that Jerry talked about in the long term. Where do you see that falling together?
Yeah, I think for Sunday's game in Seattle, you had to go Mason Rudolph. I don't know if Mike Tomlin had too much of a choice there. The offense looked as good as it has at any point over the past 2 seasons, maybe over the past 3 seasons.
Maybe.
Go back to the early 2020 season to say for a game it looked that good. The numbers point that out. Mason Rudolph's passer rating was better than any game since 2020. The point production was there to get into 34 points. The yardage was there. The longest air yardage pass is the stats and analytics put the Steelers have had in 6 years was the 44-yard completion to George Pickens that far down the field. Just the way George Pickens busting out, people call him the best offensive player of the team. I've always been kind of skeptical of that because I think getting open is part of it, but maybe the problem has been people getting the ball to George Pickens, and I think it's always been a strength of Mason Rudolph going way back to college. He is a very good deep ball thrower. He's had that connection with George Pickens. I think you would have been really, at this point of the season, when you're fighting for your season, to get in the playoffs, everything on the line, I think to go away from Mason Rudolph after that game would just be sort of coaching malpractice. So the Steelers did have, Mike Tomlin had the out of Kenny Pickett's injury to be able to do this without really creating too much of a controversy. Of course, where it gets really interesting is if the Steelers do win and Mason Rudolph does once again repeat and have another performance like that. You almost have to start in the next week, and then you lose the crutch if you're Mike Tomlin of saying Kenny Pickett is injured, and then all of a sudden your franchise quarterback is then therefore benched, and then if the Steelers don't make the playoffs or whatever they do, you go in an offseason where it's a whole different narrative where your franchise quarterback then is your franchise quarterback, is Mason Rudolph a free agent, all that could happen, but hey, you worry about that if and when it happens. It's a good problem to have because that means you won a game in Seattle where it's a really tough place to win. For this Sunday, it was the right decision.
412-575-2600 on the Borders and Borders hotline. That's where you can reach us. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have our GMC Sierra tweet of the night. Plus, we're answering some of your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Plus, we're taking your phone calls as well. The board is lit up. We'll do it all when we come back. Stick around.